With leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Shouldn't Easter remain part of the curriculum, part of the studies, frankly, part of the fun on primary schools in this country?
Well, it should. First of all, this is Christian phobia. But the reasons why it should remain is because it's a lovely thing to have. Easter bonnets are fun. The Easter story reminds people, and especially tells children, that there's a point in life, they're loved, there's life after death. That's worth hearing about. The second thing is it's been got rid of in the interest of diversity. Well, that's nonsense. It's actually, they're excluding Christianity, so that's just incompetent by the head teacher, whose name is Stephanie Amanda. But the third reason, I think, was expressed by Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who's been worrying about European civilization surviving. And she says, I think in a very useful analogy, that Christianity is the operating system that has defined our culture and upon which all the values we like is based. And if you destroy the operating system, the apps won't work. And I thought that was a very helpful metaphor.
Now, let's talk to you, Dr. Sheikh Ramsey. What's your take on this? Are you surprised, maybe disappointed, that Easter's been cancelled in this school?
A head teacher very respectfully is right to the people, right to all the parents, and it says, of course, we are cancelling because of the diversity and of course inclusivity. 50% of the children, maybe they are not of Christianity, or maybe more. Therefore, the head teacher wants to keep all together. If the 50% does not come and 50% stays away and 50% doing, for example, Easter bunny or so, Easter parade, it is not inclusivity for all.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 10 a.m. on Saturday, the 19th of April. Live across the United Kingdom, this is Saturday Morning Live.
And we have some breaking news this morning. People smugglers have pushed a small boat with half a dozen women and children into the English Channel, despite winds and waves being too high. And that takes the total this week to 2,150 migrants. We'll be bringing you the latest.
And the leader of the Scottish Conservatives, Russell Finlay, is calling on Scotland's First Minister to hold a summit on organised crime instead of the far right, as John Swinney is set to convene community leaders in a bid to tackle the far right. We'll be joined by Russell Finlay shortly.
And a survey has found that 59% of teachers believe that social media use has contributed to a deterioration in pupils' behaviour in schools. They're blaming bad influences for a rise in misogyny in schools. But is that really the case? We'll be debating it.
And today is Holy Saturday, as Christians across the world commemorate the day between Christ's death and his resurrection. We'll be reflecting on the Christian story as we look ahead to Easter Day tomorrow. Live pictures there from Jerusalem.
Well, the biggest stories, the boldest opinions and the liveliest debates over the next 2 hours. I'm Miriam Cates.
And I'm Charlie Peters, and your weekend starts here.
This is a really interesting story, isn't it, in Scotland? John Swinney saying that the rise of the far right is one of the biggest threats that they face in Scotland and causing this conference. But Russell Finley's not playing ball.
Yeah, and he's referring to Reform UK, that party, as among the far right. Some 7% of Scots voted for that party last year. I'm sure many of our Scottish viewers right now are watching or listening and thinking, am I in the far right? Does the leader of the Scottish government
Well, I think Reform are on 17% in the polls now,
Yes,
so that's a big chunk of the Scottish
come a long way since that election last year. So we'd love to hear what you think. Do there need to be these meetings to deal with the so-called far right in Scotland? Or is Russell Finley getting things right when he says, actually, it's the gangs that we need to be targeting amid turf wars in Scotland between Glasgow and Edinburgh?
Yes, well, do send your views, post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay.
There'll be lots more to dive into today. We'll be discussing so many other breaking stories coming across to us this weekend. But before we get into that, Tatiana Sanchez has all your news headlines.
Charlie, thank you very much. The top stories. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has pledged to deepen ties with China amid the ongoing fallout from President Donald Trump's tariffs. Speaking with The Telegraph, the Chancellor says it would be very foolish for Britain to disengage from China. She's due to hold talks with the US next week amid efforts to strike a trade deal, which the UK hopes can help soften the brunt of Donald Trump's 10% tariffs on goods imported into America. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer hailed productive trade talks between the UK and the US in a 35-minute call with President Trump yesterday. Elsewhere, the transgender community will hold protests in both England and Scotland today, just days after a Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman. Trans rights groups and trade unions will come together for an emergency demonstration in Parliament Square, while a rally organised by Resisting Transphobia will take place in Edinburgh. It comes after the UK Supreme Court ruled that the legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Judges say the concept of sex is binary, while cautioning that the landmark ruling should not be seen as a victory of one side over another. Channel people smugglers have been condemned as callous and extremely reckless after launching a migrant boat with women and children on board in dangerous conditions today. Despite sustained winds of more than 20 miles per hour and heavy swells, the small boat made it to UK waters around 7:30 a.m. 25 migrants were on board the boat and were transferred to the Border Force vessel Volunteer. As GBNews filmed the migrants disembarking at Dover Harbour, half a dozen women and young children could be seen among them. In other news, a British couple who were among 4 people killed in a cable car crash near Naples in Italy have been named as Elaine Margaret Wynne and Graham Derrick Wynne, according to Italian media. The mountain cable car cabin plunged to the ground after one of the cables supporting it snapped on Thursday. The cable car operator said it had passed a safety inspection just 2 weeks ago and that a criminal investigation has been opened. The 2 other victims include the driver of the cable car, named by authorities as 59-year-old Carmine Palato, and an Israeli woman identified as Janan Suleiman. Officials say a 5th person in the cabin, Ms. Suleiman's brother, was extremely seriously injured in that crash and airlifted to hospital, where he still remains in a critical condition. Elsewhere, the Health Secretary is taking inspiration from Japan in his bid to change how Britons are treated by the NHS. Wes Streeting says he's interested in the idea of health MOTs for Britain's older citizens, evoking how the Asian island nation relies on personalised medical plans for its ageing population. Japan combines genomics and AI machine learning to offer hyper-bespoke programmes for individuals, helping to predict and prevent illnesses before they really take hold. Mr. Streeting said such an approach could be a game changer in the UK as he prepares to publish his 10-year plan for the health service later in the year. Social media influencers are fueling an increase in misogyny and sexism in schools, according to a new poll by a teaching union. Almost 3 in 5 teachers said they believe social media use has had a negative effect on behaviour in schools. A poll of 5,800 teachers in the UK has found. Influencer and self-proclaimed misogynist Andrew Tate was named by a number of teachers in the poll. The Department for Education said it was supporting the teachers to tackle the damaging impact on children caused by the rise of dangerous influencers. And finally, pubs in England and Wales will be allowed to stay open for an extra 2 hours to celebrate the 80th anniversary of VE Day on May the 8th. Pubs and bars will be allowed to keep serving until 1 a.m, which will mark 4 days of celebrations. It's to raise a glass and celebrate those who served in the Second World War. The Prime Minister said the whole country should come together to remember the incredible sacrifices made by the wartime generation and to celebrate the peace and freedom they secured for us all. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana, and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and me, Miriam Cates.
Now to Scotland now for our top story, because the Scottish Conservative leader Russell Finlay has called on the First Minister John Swinney to hold a summit on tackling organised crime instead of the far right, following violent incidents in Edinburgh and Glasgow linked to an ongoing gang feud.
Well, these calls come as the First Minister is set to hold a summit on Wednesday designed to tackle the rise of the far right, affirming that the far right and racist hatred have no place in Scotland.
But in recent weeks, incidents involving gangs have been taking place across Edinburgh and Glasgow, with shots fired at buildings and a number of properties set on fire. So joining us now is the leader of the Scottish Conservatives, Russell Finlay. Thanks very much for coming on the programme this morning. Russell, who are the far right in Scotland and who are they being targeted by?
Well, nobody's exactly sure what John Swinney is talking about, frankly. He initially said his summit was to oppose polarising forces in politics. And I wrote to him to say, well, you are the party of polarisation. You spent your entire life trying to break up the United Kingdom and vilifying those who want to preserve our country. You've spent the past few years pushing radical gender ideology in people to the detriment of women's rights, polarising society yet further. And you lead a government that spends its time being dishonest with the public and being opposed to transparency. So my call to John Swinney was, if you want me to attend this event, why not commit to addressing those 4 issues, those 3 or 4 issues? And he wrote back to me, he didn't even attempt to address them, which left me to conclude that this summit was exactly what people suspected it was, and that was a stunt created by John Swinney in order to deflect from his own miserable, failed record of government, 18 miserable years in which Scotland has been let down.
Now, Russell, one of the issues that you've highlighted that you believe John Swinney should be tackling is the rising gang violence in Glasgow. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening in Glasgow and, to some extent, Edinburgh?
Yeah, well, this summit, there's so much that could be spoken about. We could speak about what people care about, which is the broken Scottish education system, which has been trashed by the SNP, or we could speak about the record waiting times in the NHS, or indeed the burden facing businesses, record numbers of which, especially in hospitality, are going under because of SNP policies. But also right now, across the central belt of Scotland, between Glasgow and Edinburgh, there is a continuation of a drugs war, a turf war that's been taking place now for the best part of a quarter of a century. Prior to becoming a politician, I investigated and reported on organised crime in Scotland, and these gangs are utterly despicable, parasitical and cowardly. And the latest outbreak of violence has seen a child stabbed in her own home, aged 12, an OAP similarly attacked, homes of people firebombed, and frankly, it's a miracle that no one has yet died. There have been multiple deaths as a result of this drugs war, which involves 2 of the largest organised crime groups in Scotland. So I'd perhaps suggest John Swinney's time would be better served addressing this disgraceful and dangerous drugs war that's taking place across Scotland.
Well, Russell, the Scottish Government and John Swinney are saying they are tackling this problem. The Serious Organised Task Force is dealing with it. Police Scotland seized over £50 million worth of drugs last year. They say they're dealing with the drug gangs. But going back to this claim that the so-called far right need to be tackled in Scotland. Now, John Swinney singled out Reform UK, one of the parties that you're competing with, as being among the far right in Europe. Do you agree with that claim?
Well, John Swinney loves talking about reform, and I think your viewers should know the reason he loves talking about reform is that every vote for reform in Scotland is a gift to the SNP. I woke up this morning to see headlines in an interview from the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage saying that he would support an SNP First Minister following next year's Holyrood election. Now, to anyone who believes in the Union, anyone who believes in the value of the United Kingdom, this is absolutely shocking, and I think is indicative of the fact John Swinney wants to talk about reform, reform want to be talked about, and my job is to push forward what we believe in, which is common sense, conservative values and policies, and not play John Swinney's game. He's using taxpayers' funds to hold a summit, which is effectively a stunt to distract from his own miserable record in government. And this comes the same week after he and his government were humiliated in the Supreme Court. And what about an apology to the women of Scotland and indeed the women across the United Kingdom? He's been asked to apologise, he's refused to do so. He should now also ensure that every single public body in Scotland abandons the gender politics that have been imposed on them by Nicola Sturgeon and John Swinney.
Russell, I think we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us this morning. And we do need to say that a spokesman for the Scottish Government has said the First Minister has been clear that the far right and racist hatred should have no place in Scotland. Wednesday's event will bring together political, faith and community leaders to agree a common approach to asserting Scotland's shared values and creating a cohesive society where everyone feels at home.
Disrupting organised crime and diverting individuals away from organised crime remains a priority for the Scottish Government and partners on the Serious Organised Crime Task Force, as shown through the Serious Organised Crime Strategy, which puts the emphasis firmly on identifying the key threats, focusing on strengthening the links between intelligence and making better use of data. Miriam, as you just heard there, Russell Finney talking about how Nigel Farage thinks that the SNP would be preferable to Labour. I mean, I've just been reading this morning that Richard Tice, his deputy, said that anything is preferable to the SNP. Interesting reform split in Scotland.
It does seem a lot more about political manoeuvring than actual concern about the far right. Although the breeding ground for the far right is when crime gets out of control, immigration gets out of control, poverty gets out of control, and John Swinney should be more concerned about changing those conditions, which the SNP are responsible for, if he really wants to tackle political extremism.
Yeah, well, in my view, there are no elected far-right politicians in Britain. But anyway, moving on, it's been a record week for small boat crossings in the English Channel.
Yes, and we have some breaking news this morning. A small boat arrived in UK waters at 7:30 a.m. this morning as people smugglers pushed one boat with 25 migrants on board, despite high winds and waves.
Now, this comes as just yesterday, some 250 migrants made the dangerous crossing, with 113 arriving in Dover just before 9 p.m. last night, which brings us to a total of 2,150 crossing this week alone and 9,350 this year. Well, let's get an update now with our Home and Security editor, Mark White. Mark, they just keep coming.
Yes, and I think this morning it really just shows how callous and reckless the criminal people smugglers are. They do not care about the safety, frankly, of those that they're pushing out in these flimsy boats. They just want to make their money. And they push these boats out in conditions where no one was expecting any crossings today, because we've had weather that is sustained winds of over 20 miles an hour, and we've heavy swells in the middle of the channel. So these boats, clearly, they're not designed for much, and they're certainly not designed to be heading across the channel in those kind of conditions. But it made it somehow to the UK waters, and was picked up by the Border Force Vessel Volunteer. Now, our producer Chris was down in Dover Harbour and filmed first thing this morning as the Border Force Vessel Volunteer arrived and disembarked those 25 migrants. And he was shocked to see among them was half a dozen women and some very young children who had made that journey as well. And that just goes to show you, as I say, just how reckless these individuals are, that they would put women and children on a boat in those kind of conditions. And you're right to say that we have had a record week. 2,150 is unprecedented for this time of year, arrivals in the space of just over a week now, and 9,337 is the total for the year so far, which is 43% ahead of this point last year in terms of arrivals. And it is the biggest ever number of arrivals since the migrant crisis began back in 2018 for the first 4 months of this year. So yes, the boats just keep on coming, and the people smugglers are determined to just keep pushing the limits, risking lives as they put these boats out in ever more dangerous conditions.
Mark White, our security correspondent, thank you so much for that report. And we've now got with us the former Chief Immigration Officer at UK Border Force, Kevin Saunders. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. I think you will have heard the interview there with Mark White describing what seems to be a new tactic from the people smugglers, pushing women and children into UK waters in terrifying conditions. Do you think this is a sign of things to come?
Oh, yes. The people smugglers are just concerned with making money. They're not worried if people die, so they will stick people on these boats if they think that they're going to make money out of it. And unfortunately today 25 came across, and they'll see that as a big victory.
Especially considering the weather. But also we're hearing this morning that Labour are planning to use return hubs in the Balkans for rejected asylum seekers. Is this a version of the Rwanda deportation strategy being brought forward by Labour, having realised that their strategy of smashing the gangs just isn't working?
Yes, I think it probably is. I mean, we need a deterrent. This would act as a deterrent because despite what people say, the actual number of people that get asylum is actually quite low. People get what is called humanitarian protection because they failed asylum, but we can't get rid of them because they come from the Yemen or somewhere like that. So if we're going to send those sorts of people off to the Balkans, that's going to act as a big deterrent. They're not going to pay lots and lots of money to end up in the Balkans. So that might be, I say might be, it might be a bit of a deterrent, yes.
And Kevin, do you think the French are doing enough to prevent launches? I think they prevent 2 in 5 or something like that, which is not insignificant. But is there anything more that the French border forces could do?
Yes, the French could do an awful lot more. There was talk earlier last month that they were going to actually operate up to 300 metres onto the channel, getting their feet wet to stop the boats. This doesn't seem to have happened yet, but until the French will actually get into the channel, onto the channel, we're never going to win this.
Thank you very much for coming on the programme this morning. Well, moving on now, is social media fueling a rise in misogyny in classrooms? Some teachers polled in a recent survey believe so. We'll be debating that.
But next, Britain's most dangerous criminals are recorded under 51 genders. That's according to a Home Office database. Are we making a mockery of the justice system? You're watching Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're Proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Grandma was taking Violet Grace crossing the road and got hit by a driver. What speed was he doing?
At 83 miles an hour in a 30 zone. Violet was thrown 50 metres up in the air, up the road. She, went to hospital and sadly, she had brainstem death plus other injuries. And sadly passed away and donated her organs on the 26th. It was Mother's Day that year. So she donated her organs to save the life.
And the monster who was driving that car got 9 years and 4 months. How did that make you feel?
Well, he did. On the face of it, he got 9 years and 4 months, but actually he got discounts for pleading guilty, even though within 3 hours he was on a flight to Amsterdam because he wanted to go and clear his head and smoke some weed.
You have 2 other small children, but what has the impact been on your life, and how might it have been different if you felt like justice had been served?
I think for us, and this is one of the reasons we're campaigning for us, I don't think any sentence would have been enough. But what we're trying to do with the campaign is what would have made us feel better if we would have felt protected and looked after as victims. We were in court, we were told we get to write what's called a victim impact statement, where it's supposed to be you as a victim, how this crime has affected your life. We were told we had to edit it. We were told we couldn't call him a child killer, which he was. He'd already pled guilty to, but wasn't sentenced, so we weren't allowed to call it him. Becky wanted to talk about all of Violet's injuries. We were told we weren't allowed to do that because it might upset him in court. It might...
Hang on, might upset who? The killer?
Aidan McAteer and Dean Brennan might upset them in court because we have to keep it as a level thing and stuff. No, so already, as victims, we were feeling this is supposed to be a victim impact statement. This is supposed to be us telling you how the court and the judge, so we can sentence properly, how it's affected our lives. So already we were told not to expect that.
The People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Saturday Morning Live with Miriam and Charlie.
Now, let's see what you've been saying on gbnews.com/your say. We were just discussing that breaking news from the channel about more crossings this morning, and Dubbing Needle says there are so many attention-grabbing headlines with Labour's plans. I've lost track. That's on this announcement we're hearing this morning that there could be deportations to the Balkans as part of what they're calling returns hubs approved by the UN. But Joyce here says that she welcomes anything that stops these boats coming over. I think many people will be very interested, Miriam, to hear about this new returns hub plan.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot like Rwanda to me.
Just Rwanda, but further north. I think that's all the difference. Well, I mean, it's very clear that offshore processing is the only deterrent that's going to work. And I understand why Labour can't go back to the Rwanda plan for political reasons. They're going to have to find something else. So maybe that's it. Maybe that will smash the gangs.
Yes. Well, I'll move on to other stories now. We've got a couple of fabulous guests joining us. We've got writer and broadcaster Candice Holdsworth and the former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire going through the papers. Shall we start with The Telegraph, Scarlett, on the Premier League clubs charging thousands for children to be mascots?
This is absolutely shocking, actually, because you all see at the beginning of a Premier League game, possibly other games as well, that the captain comes out and holds the hand of a small child, and maybe all of them have small children. And one assumed that these were kids who, had come out of hospital, had a bad time, whatever. And now we find out that Premier League they charge up to £1,800
plus VAT.
Plus VAT to do this. So I mean, it is appalling. It's exploitative. It means basically that it's either the children of the rich, or you really scrape together to do it. And what's so I mean, these are very, very rich clubs. They could be kind.
Candice, it does just confirm suspicions that the Premier League are only into the money. I mean, we should say it's about half of the Premier League clubs. There are clubs that do this for free and go to charities and sports clubs to find these kids, but nevertheless, it's extortion, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's just creating the impression, at least from people I know who talk to me about going to football matches and trying to get season tickets, it's all becoming prohibitively expensive. And that's sad for what was traditionally a very working-class sport. I mean, I think about my grandfather. I mean, he was a Man City supporter from a young age, as a young child growing up, and he could always go. Now, for his grandchildren, never. Never, never, never.
I really love seeing footage of, like, gents on stag do's getting their friend to be a mascot in the lineup alongside the kids, and I think that's the real cost, that we're going to lose out perhaps on those very funny clips of men being sort of pushed into that scenario. I'm glad to think that that
You're
guy...
saying free mascots for stag do's.
Yeah, of course, and it'll stop these exploitative pricing systems coming in.
Absolutely.
And also, I mean, some of the clubs that they've listed here, Palace, Ipswich and West Ham, I mean, if you're paying thousands to be a mascot there, you really are punishing your child.
I think we'll have a lot of your things on that, Charlie. I would be careful.
I remember when my son was young, he was a junior gunner for Arsenal, and I think the ticket cost £5, and a bunch of primary school dads would take their kids. It was great, and he's been an Arsenal supporter ever since, but can't afford to go to the games anymore.
No, football for a fiver, that's a dream, isn't it?
Well, shall we move on to... There's a story in the Daily Mail about gender identity, definitely the story of the week. Apparently, a Home Office database allows terrorists and paedophiles to select from 51 different gender identities, I assume, when they're being either arrested or imprisoned. I mean... Candice, this has become a mockery, really, this kind of idea that there are multiple genders. And on a serious note, it has destroyed our data keeping.
Exactly. I mean, suddenly someone can be recorded as pangender for committing a very serious crime, and you don't know whether it was a male or female that did it. And data collection on this is very important, because if we find out that something, for instance, is mainly a male-dominated crime, then we can create social solutions to solve that problem, but not when there's a whole mix of confusing things. And none of this has any basis in reality. Obviously, we have the Supreme Court ruling now, which reaffirmed biological sex as binary, so this really needs to end now.
Scarlett, we've seen a lot of Labour politicians come out this week saying we've always defended single-sex spaces. Do you think we're going to see, perhaps against the record, do you think we're going to see lots of the rolling back of some of this stuff, of 51 genders and all the rest of it?
The 51 genders is obviously ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, give me a break. And actually, the Home Office have said it's got to stop. It's just, it's... What I think is it's people trying to be sort of understanding and not actually realising that, as Candice says, I mean, gender identity in crime is really, really important. I mean, a woman is killed every 3 days by her male partner or ex-partner. That is a crisis. If we start not understanding who the killers are, and if they start saying, oh, you know, really, I was a woman, it's just not good enough. We need to know what is happening and how it's happening. And 51 genders is obviously ridiculous. And actually, you know, if I was cross with the police and they said, what gender are you? You know, I might go pan. Right?
Hide your identity. But like you said, there is a serious point, and we've seen in recent years, because of this recording of gender identity or someone's preferred sex, we've seen the number of women committing rapes rise. Well, it's impossible in UK law for a woman to commit rape. So it does pour serious question marks on the validity of the data that we've got.
Well, precisely. And frankly, men who rape people and then suddenly say, I'm a woman, I would call them a predatory male. And they are part of the problem of this whole thing. I mean, you know, I'm fine with trans people. It's absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with them. But there are predatory males who use saying, I'm a woman, therefore I can go into a woman's changing room. I mean, that is awful.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if you look at things like domestic abuse, for instance, I mean, we really need to understand, you know, the gendered nature of how that happens. You know, a lot of women become victims. It can be that the men, for instance, have certain ideas, misogynistic ideas about women. And if we don't understand that properly, and it's all confusing because people are deciding that they're 51 different things, we can't solve it.
Yes, well, thanks, Candice and Sal. Oh, so I should say, though, 1 in 3 victims of domestic abuse are actually men. But then that does make it even more important that we record the crimes and their nature properly, doesn't it? But thank you so much, Candice and Scarlett. Well, still to come, is social media fuelling a rise in misogyny in schools? We'll be debating that.
But before we get stuck into that, it's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much. The top stories this hour. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has pledged to deepen ties with China amid the ongoing fallout from President Trump's tariffs. Speaking with The Telegraph, the Chancellor says it would be very foolish for Britain to disengage from China. She's due to hold talks with the US in Washington next week amid efforts to strike a trade deal, which the UK hopes can help soften the brunt of Donald Trump's 10% tariffs on goods imported into America. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer hailed productive trade talks between the UK and the US in a 35-minute call with President Trump yesterday. Channel people smugglers have been condemned as callous and extremely reckless after launching a migrant boat with women and children on board in dangerous conditions today. Despite sustained winds of more than 20 miles per hour, the small boat made it to UK waters around 7:30 this morning. 25 migrants were on board the boat and were transferred to the Border Force vessel Volunteer. As GB News filmed the migrants disembarking at Dover Harbour, half a dozen women and young children could be seen among them. And the transgender community will be holding protests in both England and Scotland today, just days after a Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman. Trans rights groups and trade unions will come together for an emergency demonstration in Parliament Square, while a rally organised by Resisting Transphobia will take place in Edinburgh. It comes after the UK Supreme Court ruled that the legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Judges say the concept of sex is binary, while cautioning that the landmark ruling should not be seen as a victory of one side over another. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Well, today is Holy Saturday, the day between Good Friday and Easter Sunday, and we're going to be talking to Gavin Ashenden about the significance of this day for the Christian Church.
And are dangerous algorithms on social media fueling a rise of misogyny in schools? We'll be debating that just next on Saturday Morning Live.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. And social media influencers such as Andrew Tate are fueling an increase in misogyny and sexism in schools. That's what teachers have suggested.
Now, a poll by the teaching union, the NASUWT, found that 59% of teachers said they believe social media use has contributed to a deterioration in pupils' behaviour in schools.
Well, delegates at the NASUWT's conference this weekend will debate a motion which suggests far-right and populist movements have shifted their recruitment onto social media messaging and online gaming platforms.
Well, joining us now to discuss this is online safety expert John Taylor and the Director of Public Affairs at the Adam Smith Institute, Maxwell Marlowe. John, I want to start with you. How concerned are you by algorithms and social media use and how they can affect children?
Well, hugely so. Yes, good morning, everyone. I spend my time currently going into schools, and I have seen a huge rise when I speak to especially secondary schools, but now even primary schools, when I actually mention things like Andrew Tate. But of course, he's not the only one. There are many. And because that rise has been there, sometimes obviously I go in on a weekly basis, and what we're trying to do is create a better culture. But one of the biggest things I now see outside of education is the fact that it's about time, if you think about the influencers themselves, where they make their money from, and that's monetarization. So I think that's something we could legally stop, so no money's going to be made by influencers, because that's the reason they use TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, X as it is now, Discord, etc. What we also need to do is speak to the platforms and say, please take away these recommended algorithms, because these children who are vulnerable are going into these, putting these searches in, and then they're getting bombarded. That's where the radicalization comes in. And the people getting hurt here are the victims in school, in primary schools, in secondary schools, teachers. We've just seen that's come out of this conference this weekend, the high percentage of teachers who are physically and obviously psychologically being affected by what's happening by these young pupils. It's got to change.
John, in the past, we took great care to control the influences on our children. We certainly didn't let them see certain things on TV. We make sure that anyone who speaks to them in school or who leads the Scouts is very much checked out. And yet we've sleptwalked into this position where children are spending 10, 12, 14 hours a day receiving information that parents have no idea what it is. How are we going to tackle this problem?
Well, it's got to come down to a number of things, as I touched on. One, education, we've got to get in. Now, when I speak to schools, I'll speak to years 1 to 13. I will speak to staff. That's my captured audience. But most schools will then say, well, can you speak to parents? The answer to that is yes. I'm off to 2 British schools in Spain just Monday and Tuesday. Now, of course, parents then make a choice. Do I go along? Do I listen to this or not? Too many parents are literally just actually not interested, or they're too busy. Now, let's face facts, parents are busy. But if they give their child access to the internet, which they will, if they give them a device, which they will, then they've got to take responsibility. So we've got this 3-pronged attack. We've got this education within schools. Yes, I'm really pleased what goes on, but too many people, unfortunately, too many schools will simply put on a video. Now, I enjoy the docudrama adolescence, but please don't just play half an hour of it and say, well, that's your education for the term. You've got to have people like me who go in and actually break this down and say, right, let's talk about toxic masculinity. Let's be honest about it. It's not just Andrew Tate. There are many people out there. And then you've got to look at the governments. Then you've got to look at the platforms. What can we use?
Let's bring in
safety,
John. Just sorry, we're just going to bring in Maxwell here. Maxwell Marlowe.
Recommended algorithms. We've got to do that. We can control that, but only if we want to.
Maxwell Marlowe. The problem here, as you just heard suggested by John, is that parents often aren't so interested in dealing with this problem.
Yeah. Good morning. So
I've been doing a lot of research into this area because I'm quite concerned about, control over social media and, the access kids have to their phones. What I found is that even since the 1980s, there have been committees set up around education and the disruption that children cause. It's always really been young men. All that's happened here is just essentially the manner in which they cause disruption has changed. Now it's come onto social media. So I don't think it is primarily to do with, horrific figures like Andrew Tate, of who I'm definitely not a fan, or these other quite toxic influencers. What I'm really concerned about, though, is, why are young men accessing this sort of content? What is the causality? And a lot of it is to do, from what I've seen, young men feeling isolated, that feel that they haven't got leadership figures in their life, whether that's fathers in their family or good male role models either in society or even in the classroom. We've seen a dip in the number of male teachers who are there. So I really think it's to do really more with the context around why children are moving in that direction when it comes to being disruptive in classrooms and what they say and what they do, rather than primarily to do with the social media, if you see what I'm saying there.
Absolutely. And I think, Maxwell, we shouldn't ignore girls either, because most of the teachers I know, and I've got 3 secondary school age children, say that almost all of the pastoral problems now, whether it is boys or girls, do originate on social media, Snapchat being a particular problem, and that actually what social media is doing is polarising boys and girls. So they occupy different worlds, they don't have to compromise anymore, and they behave badly to each other. So do you think we should be more clear that this is a problem for both sexes?
I think so, yeah. And my mum is a teacher. She has been for a long time. I hear all sorts of stories about what happens in her school between lots of students. But I think, as I said before, this is just a continuation of a problem that's always been there, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. Children being unpleasant to each other. Social media, of course, does play a new role, a new force, and essentially how it shapes children's behaviour. But I think regulating social media isn't going to get rid of the problem. As I said, it's always really been there. It's always going to be there. So I think we have to kind of be a bit careful about kind of doing a bit of a Mary Whitehouse here and trying to tell people how they should be accessing content online. I think it's to do with, as John is right to say, education. It's to do with those role models and that leadership position played by men and women, teachers, responsible people in our community. So I would be hesitant really to point the blame solely at these influencers and social media companies.
John Taylor, are you a Mary Whitehouse in disguise, trying to clamp down on freedoms on social media? I don't think John's with us. I think we'll go back to Maxwell then. So, Max, can you... OK, I think if John could hear me, he'd probably say, well, look, you may say that the cause is problems in the home, but actually these social media companies and these algorithms really exploit that. And if companies don't fix it themselves, then the government will step in and do it for them.
Well, we could say that, of course. I think it's been very interesting. If you don't mind me switching slightly over to what's going on in America at the moment and the big trade discussions going on between the White House and the UK. Regulation of social media companies by Ofcom have caused serious concern in the White House. And we've, from what I've heard about those trade discussions, the White House wants us to essentially pull back on the reins of Ofcom, of the Office for Communications, the big Quango and regulator, about this, problem about free speech and social media companies. So it's a much wider issue. I think if the UK were to make really big steps forward to try and regulate these companies because of the concerns that have rightly been raised by the teaching unions and by yourself and GBNews viewers, I do worry essentially about a lot of essentially how that's going to slip and slide into the regulation for the rest of social media, not just for kids. We heard from John about should the government ban monetization, which isn't just to do with young people. It's actually to do with an entirely new context of how the economy is going forward with digital, and I wouldn't see so much a problem with that. I know that a lot of people that come onto GBNews, to cover other subjects, have monetized their social media and are influencers because it's just a way of breaking out of the traditional media shell in terms of getting information across. So I would be quite concerned about that, to be honest. Yes, Charlie.
Maxwell Marlowe, thank you so much. And unfortunately, I think we lost connection with John Taylor there. But I do think there's a simple solution to this, Charlie, which is just say social media is not suitable for children, just like cigarettes and alcohol. Let adults do what they want online. We shouldn't have censorship, absolutely. But we should just recognise it's not suitable for children. If we don't do that, I think we will get censorship.
Well, in response to these many arguments, the Department of Education said in a statement that education can be the antidote to hate and the classroom should be a safe environment for sensitive topics to be discussed and where critical thinking is encouraged. That's why we provide a range of resources to support teachers to navigate these challenging issues, and why our curriculum review will look at the skills children need to thrive in a fast-changing online world.
Well, thank you to John and Maxwell again. And still to come, we'll be joined by a priest who's reflecting on Holy Saturday, and he is the former chaplain to Queen Elizabeth II, Gavin Ashenden. You're watching Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
The changeable weather across southern parts of Europe continues as we go into the weekend. Starting off looking in the east, and a fair few showers across the eastern parts of Greece into Bulgaria, also across parts of Montenegro and Croatia too. Mostly dry though for Italy. Heavy rain and strong winds pushing in across parts of Portugal and Spain. Meanwhile, the Canary Islands seeing a few spots of rain perhaps. A largely dry picture as we go into the beginning of next week, however. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, a very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. It's a bit of an east-west split in conditions as we start off this Saturday. Generally out in the east it's not too bad at all, but in the west we have low pressure in charge to provide a more unsettled theme overall. Outbreaks of rain, quite windy in places as well. It's going to be wettest today for Northern Ireland and northwestern areas of Scotland, but for Wales and southwest England we should hopefully see an improving picture into this afternoon. The rain easing off a little bit more and some brighter spells eventually developing. The best of the sunshine, though, will be out towards the east. Temperatures generally around average for this time of year, peaking at 14 or 15 degrees Celsius inland. But if you are directly on the coast, there is going to be a nagging breeze coming in off the North Sea, and that will hold those temperatures back a little bit more. But nonetheless, parts of eastern Scotland as well, seeing a decent amount of sunshine into the latter stages of the day as well, up into the Northern Isles as well. Just a few showers to watch out for. This rain out in the western side of Scotland, though, will be continuing as we head into this evening and overnight. Quite damp and dreary for the Outer Hebrides and parts of the Highlands. Some of that rain just lingering for Northern Ireland, but certainly not as damp as the daytime. And we've got a few more showers just pushing into the far southeast of England. Nothing too chilly overnight, temperatures ranging between 4 and 7 degrees Celsius. Into Easter Sunday itself then, we've got this system in the far northwest and the far southeast just to watch out for those few outbreaks of rain. But generally elsewhere in between, there'll be plenty of fine conditions, some decent sunny spells in there for you to be getting outside in. Winds generally will be lighter, though still quite a breeze around these showers down in the southeast, though allowing those temperatures to just pop up a little bit higher than today, around 18 degrees Celsius. The brollies, though, probably still need to be on hand because the showers are looking to turn more widespread, particularly across England and Wales, as we do head into Easter Monday. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Saturday Morning Live with Miriam and me, Charlie. But now today, Christians are marking Holy Saturday, the day before Easter, and we are bringing you daily reflection from Marcus from St Michael's Church in New Haven.
The GB News Daily Reflection.
Welcome to St Michael's Church in New Haven. My name's Marcus. Do you fear death? It's not the kind of question asked over the dinner table. And it's a topic we are not very good at discussing. Too often it gets swept under the carpet. According to Ernest Becker, author of The Denial of Death, the reality of death lies hidden in our subconscious. He writes, of all things that move man, one of the principal ones is his terror of death. In other words, beneath the pursuit of the pleasure-filled life, the drive for endless productivity and instant gratification, and so on, is the ever-present sense that our time here will soon come to an end. Hebrews chapter 2, verses 14 to 15 tells us, Jesus shared in their humanity so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death, that is the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. As Jesus laid dead in the tomb, whatever death is and wherever Jesus went, he plunged into the depths of it to rescue us and set us free so we can truly live.
Well, joining us now is former chaplain to Queen Elizabeth II, Dr. Gavin Ashenden, and we're seeing some pictures there, Gavin, from Jerusalem, I think. Can you explain to us the significance of this day in the Christian calendar?
Yes, it's a bit like rebooting a computer, I think. So there are times when the computers we use get all jammed up and they freeze and nothing works. And I have a friend who's quite a wealthy computer entrepreneur who says 90% of his work is done by telling people to reboot and it fixes things. Well, it may be true of the computer world, but spiritually, that's partly what Holy Saturday is. Something very strange and astonishing has happened. The claim is that Jesus, who is the mind behind the universe, the Son of God, has come into our world, shared our life, died for our sins, and is about to rise from the dead, as we celebrated again, to prove it's true, because if he didn't rise from the dead, then the whole thing is a kind of contrick of words. It's really quite serious. And this is very seriously contested, as you know. Atheists who can't imagine it say it can't be true. Muslims say it was faked. It's not true. So it really matters whether it's true or not. For those people who've looked at the evidence and say, well, to my surprise, this may be bigger than I am, but it seems to me very likely or certain, then it changes the whole way we do our life, because suddenly everything has significance. We're going to be accountable to God. God is going to mend our lives, beginning now. He starts with forgiveness. He gives us hope. The terrible situation I think some of us find ourselves in, feeling that computers and politics make us irrelevant. It all begins to evaporate because we're held in this relationship with God, like a dad, a father who made us, who loves us, and who takes us through every single day with significance. So the fact that Jesus raised from the dead makes everything else okay and significant, and we can manage again.
Dr. Gavin Ashenden, that is a wonderful reflection. Thank you so much. And lovely to hear it right after we had that review from the vicar in New Haven saying that, in this charge for productivity, it's nice to take this moment to have that reflection. Well,
according to the Bible Society, there's been a 50% increase in church attendance over the last 6 years, so clearly some people are seeking it out.
All right, Dr. Gavin, I can see why. Well, we've got lots more coming up on Saturday Morning Live today, including more of today's top stories with Rachel Reeves's new interesting comments on China and Sir Keir Starmer's announcement that pubs will stay open for longer on VE Day.
Well, don't go anywhere. We are Saturday Morning Live. We've got lots more coming up for you, including the news headlines and a very important debate on that issue of Chinese trade.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, for today, thankfully, the rain across the west will start to begin to ease, but always the best of the brightness will be out towards the east. So, at the moment, we've still got this area low pressure really dominating proceedings, but it is starting to drift away, and that will allow some drier air to begin to move a little bit further eastwards. But still some rain around, especially up towards western parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, some heavy and persistent rain still here, but but thankfully, come the afternoon, a little bit drier down towards the southwest compared to yesterday. But the best of the brightness, as I mentioned, out towards the east, but here feeling a little bit cooler than what we saw yesterday. And I think overall highs reaching the mid-teens in a few spots. So as we end the afternoon, moving into the evening, a fine end to the day for eastern coast of Scotland, but over towards the west, we've still got this area of rain. A bit of a grey, damp afternoon and evening for Northern Ireland, but over towards much of England and parts of Wales, actually, it should be a fairly fine end to the day. And thankfully down towards the southwest, although still a fair bit of cloud around, it should be a good deal drier. So into the nighttime period, for much of England, Wales and eastern Scotland, a fairly quiet night to come. Still got the rain out towards the northwest, and just keeping an eye on the risk of maybe some heavy showers just developing later down towards the very far southeastern corner. In the clearer skies, turning a little bit chilly, could just see a touch of frost in the most prone spots. So for Easter Day, after any showers in the very far southeast clears during the morning, for much of England and Wales, actually it should be a fairly reasonable day. Certainly a much better day down towards the southwest, although it may well turn cloudy here again as we end the day. For much of Scotland, also fairly fine, but still got some rain to move across the very far west of Northern Ireland and western Scotland.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And
the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Welcome back. It's 11 o'clock on Saturday, the 20th of April. We are live across Britain. This is Saturday Morning Live.
Now, Chancellor Rachel Reeves makes the case for closer ties with China. But as she heads to Washington for a trade deal, does Britain need to pick a side between the US and Beijing? We'll be discussing that shortly.
And some breaking news this morning. People smugglers have pushed a small boat with 25 migrants, including women and children, into the English Channel today, despite wind and waves being too high. And that takes the total this week to 2,150 migrants. We'll be bringing you the latest.
And elsewhere, shopkeepers are fighting back against changes to national insurance as independent retailers battle to keep afloat. Jack Carson, our reporter in the Midlands, will bring us a special report from Coventry.
See if we can get it done. I think we have a really good chance of getting it done, and it's coming to a head right now.
President Trump suggests the US could abandon peace talks between Ukraine and Russia as he grows frustrated with the lack of progress, wanting to get the deal done this week.
And to commemorate the 80th anniversary of VE Day, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has extended pub and bar opening hours across the country. We'll speak to one landlord about how the hospitality industry will be marking the occasion.
And today is Holy Saturday as Christians across the world commemorate the day between Christ's death and resurrection. We'll be reflecting on the Christian story as we look ahead to Easter Day tomorrow. The biggest stories, the boldest opinions and liveliest debates over the next hour. I'm Miriam Cates.
And I'm Charlie Peters. And your weekend starts here.
Well, don't forget, we want to hear from you, so do post all your comments. We've had some lively debates already, and we're going to be discussing Chinese trade in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have Sir John Redwood and Vince Cable coming on to debate that in a sec, a couple of political powerhouses. But we'll include you, of course, as we always do. So please do post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. Get stuck in, please, because it makes it more lively for them as well. And before we do that, and before we get stuck into those debates, Tatiana Sanchez will have all of your news headlines.
Charlie, thank you very much. Yes, the top stories. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has pledged to deepen ties with China amid the ongoing fallout from President Trump's tariffs. Speaking with The Telegraph, the Chancellor says it would be very foolish for Britain to disengage from China. She's due to hold talks with the US next week in Washington amid efforts to strike a trade deal which the UK hopes can help soften the brunt of Donald Trump's 10% tariffs on goods imported to America. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer hailed productive trade talks between the UK and US in a 35-minute call with President Trump yesterday. Elsewhere, the transgender community will be holding protests in both England and Scotland today, just days after a Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman. Trans rights groups and trade unions will come together for an emergency demonstration in Parliament Square, while a rally organised by Resisting Transphobia will take place in Edinburgh. It comes after the UK Supreme Court ruled the legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Judges say the concept of sex is binary, while cautioning that the landmark ruling should not be seen as a victory of one side over another. In other news, Channel people smugglers have been condemned as callous and extremely reckless after launching a migrant boat with women and children on board in dangerous conditions today. Despite sustained winds of more than 20 miles per hour, the small boat made it to UK waters around 7:30 this morning. 25 migrants were on board the boat and were transferred to the Border Force vessel Volunteer. As GB News filmed the migrants disembarking at Dover Harbour, half a dozen women and children could be seen among them. A British couple who were among 4 people killed in a cable car crash near Naples have been named as Elaine Wynne and Graham Wynne, according to Italian media. The mountain cable car cabin plunged to the ground after one of the cables supporting it snapped on Thursday. The cable car operator said it had passed a safety inspection just 2 weeks ago and that a criminal investigation has now been opened. The 2 other victims include the driver of the cable car, named by authorities as 59-year-old Carmine Palato, and an Israeli woman identified as Janan Silliman. Officials say a 5th person in the cabin, Miss Silliman's brother, was extremely seriously injured in that crash and airlifted to hospital. He remains in a critical condition. Elsewhere, the Health Secretary is taking inspiration from Japan in his bid to change how Britons are treated by the NHS. Wes Streeting says he's interested in the idea of health MOTs, he's calling them, for Britain's older citizens, evoking how the Asian island nation relies on personalised medical plans for its ageing population. Japan combines genomics and AI machine learning to offer hyper-bespoke programmes for individuals, helping to predict and prevent illness before they really take hold. Mr Streeting said such an approach could be a game-changer in the UK as he prepares to publish his 10-year plan for the health service later this year. Social media influencers are fueling an increase in misogyny and sexism in schools, according to a new poll by a teaching union. Almost 3 in 5 teachers said they believe social media use has had a negative effect on behaviour in schools. A poll of 5,800 teachers in the UK has found. Influencer and self-proclaimed misogynist Andrew Tate was named by a number of teachers in the poll. The Department for Education said it was supporting the teachers to tackle the damaging impact on children caused by the rise of dangerous influencers. And pubs in England and Wales will be allowed to stay open for an extra 2 hours to celebrate the 80th anniversary of VE Day on the 8th of May. Pubs and bars will be allowed to keep serving until 1 a.m, which will mark 4 days of celebrations. It's to raise a glass and celebrate those who served in the Second World War. The Prime Minister said the whole country should come together to remember the incredible sacrifices made by the wartime generation and to celebrate the peace and freedom they secured for us all. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana. Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Now, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, has said that cutting ties with China would be very foolish.
Yes, speaking in an interview with The Telegraph, the Chancellor argues for a deeper partnership with China, which is the second biggest economy in the world.
Now, her comments come following the row over British Steel's ownership. And joining us now is the former Business and Trade Secretary, Sir John Redwood, and the former Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Vince Cable. Sirs, thank you very much both for joining us. John, I want to start with you. What is your reaction to what Rachel Reeves has said this morning?
Well, another disastrous intervention. I mean, first of all, wrong timing. Let's, for goodness sake, get an early deal with America settled first. There's no need to be that provocative. And then, by all means, in private, start to calm the Chinese down, because they're naturally extremely angry that the government has taken legislative powers to intervene and override the actions of a Chinese company without doing a deal with them over it, and without taking full ownership and control. And she's created an enormous muddle for herself and the taxpayer, because now the taxpayer is paying bills to send coal and iron ore and other things, and maybe pay the wages into a private Chinese company. And they think they've got some kind of promissory note to get some of the money back. But have they? And why don't they sort this out in private with the Chinese? That is the first thing they need to do to try and rebuild their relationship with them.
Vince, is John right? Should we be disentangling with China but doing it in a much more private way?
No, I think what Rachel said was absolutely sensible and right and timely. And timely because China's in the middle of a process of opening its economy further. It's heavily unbalanced, should be consuming more and investing and exporting less. They're making the right moves in that direction, but they are going to open up their consumption. Imports will rise. It's very important that British companies should be there to take advantage of it. So the timing is right. We shouldn't be creating trade barriers. We should be trying to reduce them with the United States, the European Union, Southeast Asia, China. China is a massive trading power, and we have to maintain practical business-like relationship with them. If it annoys the Americans, it annoys the Americans. We're not an American vassal state. We need to have good relationship with them, and if we can negotiate a favourable trade deal, so be it. But we shouldn't be dictated to by that. Could I just add, on a personal level, I also spent 5 years as Business and Trade Secretary, so I've been in the process of negotiating both with the United States and China.
Well, we're grateful to have you
in an unreal world, backing Labour in such a stupid approach that they're following. I noticed Vince doesn't say anything at all about the shambles over steel, the intervention of a trade secretary and business secretary who doesn't have a plan, and apparently the Treasury doesn't even have an approved budget. There's some money knocking around for steel in general. But why on earth do they go and start paying all the bills before they sort it out with the owners, what the basis is, and annoying the owners? I mean, Vince doesn't answer that main point, that they've just upset the Chinese. And he doesn't answer the even more important point that the one really good thing that is on offer from these three great trading partners we've got is a trade deal with the United States of America. We know the president and his team would like one. Yes, of course, they're going to argue a hard case. We need our side to argue a good case as well. But we should be arguing a case, Vince, along the lines you and I are saying we would like, taking the tariffs off, taking the barriers down, whereas all I hear from the government is they want to have loads of barriers against America, whilst we, of course, have already taken all the tariffs down against Europe. So we've got the absurd position, for example, that we get an awful lot of foodstuffs in from Ireland because we don't place tariffs on Ireland, and yet we're still running big tariffs on American food, who could be competing with the Irish and giving us a better choice.
Well, if the United States is willing to make us a good offer, remove its tariffs, avoid some of the difficult issues that arise around digital trade, for example, I'm all for it. I don't see a problem with negotiating for liberalisation with the United States and indeed with the rest of the world. But on the steel issue, I mean, the simple problem is the succession of owners, Chinese, Indian, Dutch, British nationalisation, British private companies have all failed to manage the Scunthorpe plan successfully. I do think that the Chinese company have behaved badly. They should have had a managed transition to new owners, and they have let themselves down and us down. But that's nothing to do with the broader
Vince,
picture.
one of the reasons that Vince, one of the reasons that we can't find new owners for that plant is because it's losing £700,000 a day. And one of the main reasons for that is that British conditions, because our energy costs are so high, are so unfavourable to steel making that no one other than the Chinese, who have other reasons for investing in British steel, will take it on.
Well, this is a very long-standing problem. I mean, when I was in government, we had to provide support for British steel. It was then Indian-owned because of energy costs. And we don't have a system that the Germans now, the South, where domestic consumers cross-subsidise industry.
No, but Vince, you support the very policies that are deindustrialising Britain at pace, are destroying practically all our industry. You don't want to get our own oil and gas out of the ground. You don't want to get our own coal out of the ground. And then you defend a policy which is so obviously going to fail, with dear energy imported with extra carbon taxes to make absolutely sure that British steel, British petrochemicals, British general chemicals can never compete. Why are you out to destroy us along with Labour?
On the contrary, I had 5 years operating an industrial strategy in the UK that was very successful and did much to boost the car industry and the aerospace industry. I wish this government would get on and do the same. And part of that industrial strategy has to be a recognition in the long term that we move to low carbon economy. I'm currently involved with businesses which do that very successfully, but they need clear and consistent signals from the British government that that's the direction we're going to take, and that the price signals have to be aligned accordingly. So I don't have any problem with carbon taxation. George Osborne introduced a system of that kind when I was in government. It was producing a massive amount of investment in those industries, and we should be continuing it and not confusing business and destroying business confidence.
John Redwood, isn't the point there that the reason why Rachel Reeves wants to have these deeper ties with China is because we have no chance, as it were, to go it alone and repatriate some of the industry that's been lost out there due to those energy costs?
We have some businesses in China that are doing extremely well. Pharmaceuticals is one, nothing to do with energy costs. They've established GSK and AstraZeneca and others. They've done very well in China, the car industry also. It was to do with the size of the Chinese market and access to it.
But the steel thing is all to do with our very high energy prices
Services
and carbon
trade.
taxes.
There's potentially very large services trade with China, which is one of the reasons why successive chancellors, George Osborne, Philip Hammond, now Rachel Reeves, are promoting the Chinese trade, and we should continue with that, as we should also with the United States.
But Vince, I think the point that John's trying to make is that until we sort out our energy prices, and let's be honest, the further we've decarbonised, the higher those prices have got, British industry has no chance. Is that a fair reflection of your views, John?
Yes, of course it is, and you can see it collapsing all the time.
Vince, we keep saying John, and you keep answering. So, John Redwood, please.
Sorry, you asked me a question.
No, I did ask John that question. John Redwood.
Yes, well, as I say, we see the collapse in petrochemicals, Grangemouth just closing. We see the steel collapse, where the government has intervened very clumsily, and we're probably going to end up with a huge taxpayers' bill. Why on earth do we have a system where we charge too much tax on our energy, and then when a really crucial industry like steel goes under inevitably, then Labour and Liberals say, well, why don't we offer them a bit of subsidy? No, why don't we just take the tax off and have more realistic energy prices? And why don't we understand that we are importing massively from a huge carbon-producing China, the dominant producer of carbon dioxide worldwide, always increasing its output when it says it believes in net zero progress, and burning more and more coal, which you won't allow us to even mine in the United Kingdom.
Well, energy costs are a major problem for the British steel industry. They were for aluminium, but we closed the smelter. It's a major problem for cement, but that's not tradable. It is a particular problem for some sectors, and I do actually agree we should be dealing with the structure of our energy prices and reforming the system of energy pricing, which is very closely linked to the cost of gas, not with renewables.
Gas is 1/4 the price of electricity. That is nonsense argument.
It is absolutely not nonsense. The problem is the price
well, my
of
dual
gas.
fuel bill says I pay
Sir John and Sir Vince, sorry both, we're going to leave it there. Two knights of the realm jostling on GB News. Thank you very much for coming on the programme this morning. But elsewhere, a shopkeeper in Coventry has started a campaign aimed at highlighting the impact changes to employer national insurance and the tobacco and vapes bill will have on convenience stores.
Well, our reporter Jack Carson has the full story.
And we're driving up to my forecourt now. We're 5 minutes away from both of our stores.
For 42 years, Paul Cheemer and his family have run convenience stores in Coventry. But competing with those selling illegal products is one of the many things threatening his business. On the 1st of June, the ban on disposable vapes will come into effect. And with increases to employer national insurance, combined with the tobacco and vapes bill aiming to create the first smoke-free generation, Paul is worried.
So there is going to be job cuts. OK, there is going to be stores closing. You know, it's making us think about now, what do we do? Do we reduce our hours because of the impact now of what's coming into us, like I said, with business rates, the new wage increase, the national insurance contributions, and now the impact of this? It's unfair. We are community retailers. We employ people from our local communities. That's what we're about. And I just think the government are going about this the wrong way.
Now Paul has started a campaign to show the government the worrying impact all of this could have and where he sees the real problem.
If it's children that you want to stop buying tobacco, let's do something about that. Where are children going to buy tobacco? It's from these new micro mini marts that are popping up everywhere. Here alone in Tyler, we've probably got 5 or 6. These illegal shops are enticing children to smoke. When you can buy a single cigarette for 20p, what are you going to do?
At Paul's shops, staff have dealt with shoplifting and other violent incidents. In 2024, convenience stores in the UK reported a record of 6.2 million shop theft incidents. But it's the sale of illegal vapes and tobacco that's causing his business to lose tens of thousands of pounds every single year.
Sample £4. Rothmans £4. Rolling tobacco, order in bulk.
Paul gave GB News a first-hand look at just how easy it is for consumers to buy these products online with flashy adverts on social media.
I've ordered off him 2 times now and the delivery's always been fast, always been great. He has great customer service.
Coventry City Council say tobacco detection dogs have been part of an illicit goods crackdown at 5 premises in the city centre last month, with tobacco found behind false walls, inside furniture and inside vehicles. A government spokesperson said, "We are rightly delivering the world-leading tobacco and vapes bill to create the first smoke-free generation and end the cycle of addiction and disadvantage. It's also vital we support local retailers and get Britain's high street thriving again, which is why we will fully consult with retailers and local councils ahead of introducing licensing regulations." Paul Chima is just one shopkeeper who's fighting for his family's future, but for many stores across the UK, new legislation and competing with illegal goods might be too much to bear. Jack Carson, GB News, Coventry.
Thank you, Jack. Well, still to come, we'll cross live to Washington, D.C. to get the latest on President Trump's comments overnight on the prospect of peace in Russia and Ukraine.
But next, more of today's top stories. And can you guess which car brand has been crowned the greatest British car to ever be made? We'll reveal all next.
This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
I'm going to start with you, George Keywood. I understand you are taking some of these weight loss tablets or injections. Tell me about what they've done for you. Where were you to begin with and where are you now?
Well, I'm 25 kilos down, so, you know, they've definitely worked. They've definitely helped me. Thank you for the applause.
Why is he getting a round of applause?
That's amazing.
He's just getting an injection, though. He hasn't done anything.
Well, I haven't done anything. Obviously, you know, I
You're just
still
taking
have
an
to
injection.
stop eating. You know, just because I'm taking an injection doesn't mean that I'm not actually contributing to this weight loss journey. The whole point of the injection is to suppress the appetite.
So you're not contributing. It is suppressing your appetite.
Yeah, and you could still overeat if you wanted to, but you'd be physically sick on the floor.
So you can't.
I mean, you can. I've done it before. I've had a pizza and I've thrown it up an hour later.
You tried to cheat even that. Go on, carry on.
Look, the point is, right, it's an injection to help people. It doesn't do the job for you. You know, you've still got to put some effort in there and you've still got to, you know, work out and lose weight naturally as well alongside of it. It's an aid in losing weight. It is not the thing that's going to magically just shade 10 stone off you and you're going to be all fit and healthy. It doesn't work like that. You know, it suppresses the appetite, but you've still got to put the work in there and you've still got to stop yourself from eating, you know.
Ben Lloyd, has George cheated his way to weight loss?
I wouldn't say it's cheating as such. I'd only say it's cheating if you're doing it and outwardly saying that, oh, I'm not doing anything, it's just hard work and training. But my main forte is that you could still do it without that. And I've just briefly looked into it and I counted over 30 side effects. And with diet and exercise alone, you could do the same job with no side effects.
The People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners on GB News, 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. And before we get stuck into today's top stories, we're delighted to say that GB News Breakfast has been nominated for a Trick Award again. We've reached the long list for the best news programme and we need your help because these awards are very special because they're voted for by you at home, not by industry specialists. So please do scan the QR code on the screen right now or go to poll-trick.org.uk to vote for us.
Well, we're also delighted to announce that Charlie Peters has also been nominated in the Best News Presenter category. So please do go and vote for both Charlie and for Breakfast.
Well, enough of that lovely self-promotion. Let's go on to some news, shall we? And we're very happy to say that we're joined by the broadcaster and journalist Candice Holdsworth and the former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Good morning to you both. Thank you for coming back. Where do you want to start, Scarlett? What are we looking at? Oh, the Mini, named the best British car ever.
In my time, I had 2 Minis. They were absolutely wonderful. I just thought it was a great car. It's a great car for being young, single, runabout. It was just fantastic. Not so good for very long journeys, but absolutely lovely in London.
They're absolutely tiny in compared to modern cars. I mean, obviously they were small at the time, but the new Mini must be twice the size.
Apparently it's really good for transporting children around. A few people I know, when they've had kids, they've got the modern Minis so that they can fit everyone in the back, apparently. Didn't even know that.
Is it your favourite British car?
No.
Does it flip your switch?
No, my favourite is the Jaguar E-Type. Okay. I just think everything from the 1960s, mid-century design, if I could live in that permanently with the clothes, the cars, the interior design, but with all the modern tech, I'd be very happy.
Well, moving on, Wes Streeting, according to The Telegraph, is planning personalised health MOTs for people approaching retirement age. I assume this is so that they can have their health care tailored to their individual needs. But wouldn't it be better to do this much, much younger, Scarlett, before people maybe become unhealthy?
Yes, but I think that as we get older, we have more and more health problems, so one can understand it. Actually, you know, years ago when my father retired, and he was in the Navy, I mean, actually when he left the Navy, I mean, they gave him a health MOT, which was not great. He had to go on a diet and start doing serious exercises. I think they're a really, really good idea to say, look, you might have a few problems. This is what you should do about it, and we should have, you know, all the scans, all the everythings. But Candice knows more because she knows all about the AI stuff.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. I think the way technology now can help us personalise healthcare is really important. I know that AI is really good. It's recognising very unusual presentations of skin cancer, for instance, and doing genomic profiling. I know someone who's quite young, like you were saying, and they discovered that she had a gene that they didn't understand, but now they do understand actually presents a risk for breast cancer. So, you know, in her mid-30s, she was able to have a preventative mastectomy, and they said, yes, definitely, we could see by examining the cells that you would have got breast cancer one day. And as you get older, obviously your healthcare gets really expensive. So if you can start earlier, that's so valuable.
I think this stuff is vital. If we're going to make the NHS work, make these cuts and keep it thriving, or well, at least surviving, then preventative medicine, when you're not just reacting to illness but trying to get ahead of it, it's got to be the way. Sure.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely right. But can I say on the other side, I went in for a health check that I thought it's great, you know. I had a few problems, and the person said, no, I'm not a doctor. And worse than that is he hadn't looked at my health thing, which was pretty bad, actually. I mean, certainly the last couple of years. And instead it was, you know, are you eating 5 a day? Do you smoke? And when he got on to how much alcohol do you drink, I just said, it's none of your business. I just thought, no, you know, I mean, there are real problems, and it was quite clear. So I think what Wes Streeting is talking about is really, really useful. I think these tick box exercises actually do no good.
That's it, and you might know what the problem is, but that doesn't mean you're going to be motivated to do anything about it, does it? That's a whole separate issue. Well, let's move on. We've had a GBN exclusive this morning about the channel People Smugglers, who, despite winds of more than 20 miles an hour and really poor conditions, have pushed a boat of mainly women and children into UK Channel waters. This is only getting worse, this problem, isn't it?
It is, and I still think it was very foolish to get rid of the Rwanda scheme. There was a lot of evidence that it was working. People were starting to go via Ireland. I think now, though, the Labour Party is starting to come around to the idea that you do need third-party processing. I mean, you cannot just tackle the supply side of the issue. You've also got to tackle the demand side, and I see now they're looking at places like Albania to do that.
Yeah, what do you make of this UN-approved deportation scheme that we're seeing mooted today, Scarlett?
Well, it's completely different to the Rwanda scheme. The thing about the Rwanda scheme was you were going to take them straight from Dover to Rwanda. This is about, and then they were never coming back, whatever happened. And this is about, actually, it's basically, it's a processing in Britain, and then you send the people that you can't deport. So we're talking a lot of people who come from the Horn of Africa, that you're not going to send anybody back from Yemen to Sudan, anywhere like that, and you put them in Albania. And actually, it is different, and it means that the genuine refugees we keep, the people who are not refugees but are economic migrants, however desperate they might feel, we don't get. And always the biggest problem that we've had for the last 20 years has been a lack of processing. That's why they're in hotels because they're waiting to be processed.
But I completely agree. This would be an improvement on what we have now. But what it doesn't have, which the Rwanda scheme did have, was this understanding that if you came here by small boat, you would never, ever be allowed to settle in Britain. And isn't the problem that our grant rate is so high that actually you'd still have a pretty high chance of claiming asylum in this country?
But actually, there is no way of getting here if you are a genuine refugee. That is the problem. That's why people come over. I mean, I had somebody who was supposed to be sent to Rwanda who was given bail, and then obviously nothing happened, and came to stay with me. I mean, she was a Christian in Ethiopia. Her parents, she came from Eritrea. She hadn't seen her parents since she was 9 because they'd been jailed. Then she was threatened with jail, and she got out of the country and came here. So this was somebody, a genuine refugee. There was no way she could get here except in a small boat.
Well,
I mean, it was quite shocking.
There are routes to apply for asylum, and we've had 150,000 crossings since 2018. I'm not sure all of those were Christians persecuted in Ethiopia. And the crisis continues.
Charlie, what I'm saying is there is no other way of getting here apart from illegally. So what I'm saying is
It's not true. There are tens of thousands of refugees who are processed by other routes. But we've got to move on now. Thank you both for it. We're under a tight schedule here because it's our biggest giveaway to date. And it's your chance to win a motorhome worth over £67,000 and £5,000 in tax-free cash.
Well, imagine what you could do with that. And you could be our biggest winner to date. This is what you need to know.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, we've got lots more to come on today's show, but first of all, let's get the news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Miriam, thank you. The top stories. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has pledged to deepen ties with China amid the ongoing fallout from President Trump's tariffs. Speaking with The Telegraph, the Chancellor says it would be very foolish for Britain to disengage from China. She's due to hold talks with the US in Washington next week amid efforts to strike a trade deal, which the UK hopes can help soften the brunt of Donald Trump's 10% tariffs on goods imported into America. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer hailed productive trade talks between the UK and the US in a 35-minute call with President Trump yesterday. Elsewhere, Channel people smugglers have been condemned as callous and extremely reckless after launching a migrant boat with women and children on board in dangerous conditions today. Despite sustained winds of more than 20 miles per hour and heavy swells, the small boat made it to UK waters around 7:30 a.m. 25 migrants were on board the boat and were transferred to the Border Force vessel Volunteer. As GB News filmed the migrants disembarking at Dover Harbour, half a dozen women and young children could be seen among them. And the transgender community will be holding protests in both England and Scotland today, just days after a Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman. Trans rights groups and trade unions will come together for an emergency demonstration in Parliament Square, while a rally organised by Resisting Transphobia will take place in Edinburgh. It comes after the UK Supreme Court ruled that the legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Judges say the concept of sex is binary, while cautioning that the landmark ruling shouldn't be seen as a victory of one side over another. And those are the latest headlines for now. More from me at midday.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. After the break, we'll be discussing victory in Europe as the opening times for pubs, bars and clubs is set to be extended as we prepare to celebrate 80 years since victory in Europe.
And we'll be going live to Washington to discuss the latest on Trump's tariffs and trade deals, and also look at the Ukraine war. Is Trump threatening to walk away? What could happen to that war if he no longer wants to negotiate? That's all coming up.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back, and we're off to the US, where President Donald Trump has threatened to abandon Ukraine peace talks if there is no progress soon, because he denies that the Kremlin is playing him.
Now, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has also said that Washington is willing to move on, but there's little sign of fighting coming to an end, despite months of negotiations.
Well, President Trump had previously promised to end the war on his first day in office.
For some reason, one of the two parties makes it very difficult. We're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass. But hopefully we won't have to do that. No, Marco's right in saying it. We want to see it end.
Well, what are the chances of a British-American trade deal looking like now? And joining us to discuss that is a former advisor on UK affairs to the US Congress, Lee Cohen. Lee, thanks very much for coming on this morning. Now, the Ukraine war is obviously a massive issue for British parliamentarians. Will they be concerned about Trump's recent comments and how it could affect our relationship?
Well, good morning to you both. President Trump is threading a difficult needle. He pledged a bold promise, end the Ukraine-Russia war in a heartbeat. No more American cash bleeding into a European quagmire. And 3 months into his term, and we're waiting for that ceasefire. But undeniably, he's rewriting the rules of a war that Biden's failures, his predecessor, fueled for years. As both sides resist and Europe postures, Trump's team is in Paris and St. Petersburg, hammering away with the game-changing US-Ukraine minerals deal on the table. Billions in taxpayers' aid could finally yield profits, not body bags. Let's not kid ourselves, the war's dragging on. Zelensky's playing hardball and Putin's not budging. So as I said, Trump's threading a difficult needle for sure.
Do you think, Lee, that the assumption was that America is so powerful, Trump is seen as a strong man, that Putin would kind of feel that he had to negotiate? And are they now finding now that America has far less leverage than they thought?
Well, certainly Trump's deal-making prowess is a big motivation in this. And Trump has negotiated deals over a long career that have certainly been impressive and impactful. The stakes here are a little bit different. It's a tough road. Zelensky's stubborn and Putin's not budging easily, and Trump's facing resistance on both sides. But his track record, like with the Abraham Accords, shows he can pull off deals others can't.
Moving on to trade now, and of course, Trump's tariffs are still making headlines around the world and causing shock to the stock markets. But does Trump have a problem? There was quite a broad coalition in favour of reindustrialising America, making trade fairer from the American point of view again. But the approach to tariffs has seemed very haphazard, perhaps causing more harm than good. Is Trump actually destroying that coalition that would have supported him?
Well, I think that, certainly these things can't happen overnight, and the results that Trump is going for will take time. And what's happening is a number of countries are lining up to make bilateral trade tariff deals. So that is on the whole very positive, and there's some time involved in order for that to play out. So certainly there are a lot of jitters with the stock market, and that can't be waved away. But the fact that there's been very, a lot of interest from a lot of countries to line up to discuss renegotiating their tariffs is very hopeful.
But on China, and of course everybody understands why the US wants to decouple from China and kind of rewrite the global economy, and I think there's some sympathy for that. But the problem for Trump is if he puts tariffs on absolutely everything imported from China, including things that the US no longer makes itself, surely he's just harming American businesses before they have chance to rebuild their capacity.
Well, certainly that part is true, and I believe the world, certainly the UK, thinks it's a good idea to decouple from China as well. And these are still early days in that particular negotiation, so we need to give that a little bit of time to play out as well. I think there's going to be some back and forth.
Lee Cohen, thank you very much, former advisor on British affairs to the US Congress. Thanks for coming on the programme this morning. Well, still to come.
We are still here.
We will be commemorating the 80th anniversary of VE Day, and Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has extended pub and bar opening hours across the country. We'll get the latest on all of that.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
While Storm Hans has now eased off, it is still fairly unsettled across western and central areas of the Mediterranean. Some heavy rain and thunderstorms still continuing for parts of Iberia, areas of France, and some mountain snow is still over parts of the Alps as well. Out towards the east, though, it's generally a calmer picture. Parts of Greece and Turkey holding on to fairly fine conditions. So if you are looking for some sunshine at the moment, east is generally your better bet.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, for today, thankfully the rain across the west will start to begin to ease, but always the best of the brightness will be out towards the east. So at the moment we've still got this area low pressure really dominating proceedings, but it is starting to drift away, and that will allow some drier air to begin to move a little bit further eastwards. But still some rain around, especially up towards western parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, some heavy and persistent rain still here. But thankfully, come the afternoon, a little bit drier down towards the southwest compared to yesterday. But the best of the brightness, as I mentioned, out towards the east. But here, feeling a little bit cooler than what we saw yesterday. And I think overall highs reaching the mid-teens in a few spots. So as we end the afternoon, moving into the evening, a fine end to the day for eastern coast of Scotland. But over towards the west, we've still got this area of rain. A bit of a grey, damp afternoon and evening for Northern Ireland, but over towards much of England and parts of Wales, actually, it should be a fairly fine end to the day. And thankfully down towards the southwest, although still a fair bit of cloud around, it should be a good deal drier. So into the nighttime period, for much of England, Wales and eastern Scotland, a fairly quiet night to come. Still got the rain out towards the northwest, and just keeping an eye on the risk of maybe some heavy showers just developing later down towards the very far southeastern corner. In the clearer skies, turning a little bit chilly, could just see a touch of frost in the most prone spots. So for Easter Day, after any showers in the very far southeast clears during the morning, for much of England and Wales, actually it should be a fairly reasonable day. Certainly a much better day down towards the southwest, although it may well turn cloudy here again as we end the day. For much of Scotland, also fairly fine, but still got some rain to contend with across the very far west of Northern Ireland and western Scotland.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Saturday Morning Live with Miriam and Charlie.
Now, let's see what you've been saying on gbnews.com/your say. We've been getting in touch on all we've been discussing this morning. And Dubbing Needle, some name
Great
that is,
name.
has said that maybe the Americans should walk away and leave Russia and Ukraine to it. Trump and his team have more important things to concentrate on. Let the Europeans sort it out. Well, Miriam, I think they wish they could, but Europe just doesn't have the arms and the cash to do so.
Well, it may end up what happens anyway. We'll see. Well, moving on, to commemorate the 80th anniversary of VE Day, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has extended pub and bar opening hours across the country.
Now, on Thursday, the 8th of May, when we celebrate that 80th anniversary, venues that typically close at 11 p.m. can remain open until 1 a.m, allowing patrons to raise a glass to honour our veterans.
Well, the announcement is also hoped to be a boost for the hospitality industry. And joining us now is the landlord at the Dog of Wingham, Mark Bridgham. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Oh, I haven't found Mark yet. But, I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? 80th anniversary, and really this is probably the last decade anniversary where there'll be a substantial number of people alive who actually remember VE Day.
And I'm very excited to raise a glass to them. And I think this extension to 1 a.m. is grand. And I think we can now join Mark to tell us more about this move. Mark, 1 a.m. opening times, it's a great thing to celebrate.
Yeah, it's a good chance to get the village together, get friends and neighbours. You know, we'll get the bunting out and decorate the pub. Probably get our pianist in to play some, standards of the time. Yeah, and we'll be raising a glass and celebrating. And any excuse to stay open a little later can't hurt.
Mark, it's a Thursday evening. It could be a work day the next day. Do you think people will stay out late? I mean, certainly I've heard previously from publicans that drinking patterns have changed since COVID and people tend to go home earlier.
Yeah, in all honesty, I don't see people staying out a whole lot later. So, it's a nice gesture by Mr. Starmer. But I think the most important thing is that we recognise and celebrate VE Day. I don't think people will be out celebrating at the dog till 1 a.m, but we'll certainly mark the occasion and use it as a chance to get our villagers, friends and neighbours together.
Well, the gauntlet has now been set, has it not, for your locals at the Dog, because they'll certainly now be called out on national telly, Mark, as people who aren't going to stay out to 1 a.m. to celebrate our greatest generation. I hope they are watching, and I hope they are listening, and I hope they will be there until 1 a.m. In fact, I know I will be, because even if I am working early at GB News on Friday the 9th, because this is an extremely important occasion. I think we should be really happy about the extension of those opening hours and make the most of them as well.
Yeah, listen, we hope our neighbours and regulars do, and I know there's a few that will certainly make the most of it. But like I say, the most important thing is the 80th anniversary of VE Day and recognising that and celebrating it and remembering those that gave their lives for us. I think the serious side of it is the most important side, and a bit of bunting, bit of piano. It will be a fantastic day.
Do you have any regulars who actually lived through VE Day and remember it? They'd have to be probably 90, I suppose, now to remember it as a child. But do you have any locals who will reminisce?
Yeah, we certainly have some villagers that will remember and that always come out for Remembrance Day. We close the high street for Remembrance Day, and there's a procession, and there will be. They'll probably come out earlier in the day, I would imagine, and I think we'll probably do some special dishes at lunchtime. Hopefully the weather will be kind to us, so the bunting, can be hung in the garden. There's certainly some people in the village that do go that far back and may have some memories of it. But I think as long as we all remember and get together, and it is a Thursday night, but I think we often see that Thursday is the new Friday. I don't think people will be worried. They'll be working from home on the Friday, and a good time will be had by all at the Dog.
I like that. Thursday, the new Friday, and what a better occasion to make the most of that shift in our sort of revelling patterns, mostly due to people working from home now on Friday, right? Then celebrating that generation, celebrating victory in Europe. Mark, is it strange, though, that you have to accept permission from the government to celebrate in your pub until 1 a.m? I mean, these licensing conditions, you have to wait to be given the honour to make the most of your pub and the keenness of your locals to make the most of this patriotic celebration.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is recognising the day and celebrating that. I'm sure over the coming weeks, there'll be a few politicians saying, this is a real help for the hospitality industry, but that's not really a relevant conversation on the day that we're marking. If they want to have that conversation, I'm always available, and there's lots we can talk about. I think it's really important that the focus is on the victory in Europe, VE Day, and remembering those that gave their lives, and bringing communities together. And if we can do it a little later than usual, fantastic. That's the most important bit. And a couple of extra hours trade is kind of a bit by the by.
Mark Bridgen, landlord at the Dog of Wingham. Don't forget to get down there until 1 o'clock in the morning if you're local. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Wow, that was lovely, wasn't it? I think it's so good that we have that extension. But I do, you know, I think I made clear my view of that. Expecting the government to allow us to have that opportunity is a little bit strange.
I think there are two different stories here. Obviously, hospitality, really, really important industry, but also VE Day, so important to remember. Again, it'll be one of the last times where we have people who have that within their living memory, so really important to mark the occasion.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Saturday Morning Live today. But don't go anywhere, as Dawn Neeson is up next with The Weekend. Dawn, what's coming up on the show?
Hello, we've got a cracking show lined up for you. Lots of special Easter fun are coming up, including what that Easter egg says about you. So be very careful what you buy for your other half, because you're revealing a lot more than you think. Also, all the breaking stories of the day, including being live at that pro-trans rally today. So you don't want to miss it. A cracking show coming up, and I'll see you very soon. But first, let's have a look at the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, for today, thankfully the rain across the west will start to begin to ease, but always the best of the brightness will be out towards the east. So at the moment we've still got this area low pressure really dominating proceedings, but it is starting to drift away, and that will allow some drier air to begin to move a little bit further eastwards. But still some rain around, especially up towards western parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, some heavy and persistent rain still here, but thankfully, come the afternoon, a little bit drier down towards the southwest compared to yesterday. But the best of the brightness, as I mentioned, out towards the east. But here, feeling a little bit cooler than what we saw yesterday. And I think overall highs reaching the mid-teens in a few spots. So as we end the afternoon, moving into the evening, a fine end to the day for eastern coast of Scotland. But over towards the west, we've still got this area of rain. A bit of a grey, damp afternoon and evening for Northern Ireland, but over towards much of England and parts of Wales, actually, it should be a fairly fine end to the day. And thankfully down towards the southwest, although still a fair bit of cloud around, it should be a good deal drier. So into the nighttime period, for much of England, Wales and eastern Scotland, a fairly quiet night to come. Still got the rain out towards the northwest, and just keeping an eye on the risk of maybe some heavy showers just developing later down towards the very far southeastern corner. In the clearer skies, turning a little bit chilly, could just see a touch of frost in the most prone spots. So for Easter Day, after any showers in the very far southeast clears during the morning, for much of England and Wales, actually it should be a fairly reasonable day. Certainly a much better day down towards the southwest, although it may well turn cloudy here again as we end the day. For much of Scotland, also fairly fine, but still got some rain to contend with across the very far west of Northern Ireland and western Scotland.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with skyroof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick